So in today's live lesson, we're going to talk about how you can sound more like a pro ukulele player. And really what this is adopting something that I like to call the performance mindset. Now, you don't have to be a performer to adopt this mindset. Really what it is creating accountability to always be playing at the best of your ability. And you can only play at the best of your ability if you practice towards that. So we're going to talk about some different practice habits that you can do to make it so that when uncomfortable situations arise, you know how to handle it. When you make mistakes, you can play through them. And when you play in just uncomfortable different situations, you'll be prepared. And so what I want to start with on this is just talking about the difference between when you're sitting at home practicing in your same chair, in your same setup all the time versus when you're performing or playing for someone or maybe playing in a different environment. What you'll immediately realize is when things are different and we haven't practiced towards that difference, it feels almost impossible to be able to perform at the same level that we hold ourselves accountable to when we're practicing in a familiar environment. In fact, Brown University did a awesome study on distracted practice. They had people learn how to do different skills with tablets and sort of devices. And they had people practice these skills in two different environments. One environment being very controlled, no extra sounds or distractions. The other environment was very distracted. They'd have lights and sounds and different things going on. And then they would have people perform these skills, and they'd have them perform in these two different environments as well. Environment of, no distractions whatsoever versus those lights and sounds going off. And what's really fascinating is the people that did the worst at this were the ones who practiced in a really controlled environment and then performed in the really distracted environment. And those who did actually exceptionally well were the ones who practiced in the distracted environment and performed in the controlled and in the distracted environment. It's pretty amazing how we need to practice towards the environment that we want to be able to perform in, and this is a great sort of representation of that. Now, I've got a decent representation of this right now. I injured my finger this last week, and it just happened to be with this live stream, fittingly enough, but it's just a sprain. I had x-rays. They were all negative. We should be good. Mobility's starting to come back. But with this, it's been interesting because I've still been teaching and playing ukulele, and it's actually been kind of a good opportunity to put some of these concepts at play. I'm going to bring the camera down for a moment. This is my baritone ukulele, and I've been playing this thing a lot recently. And I'm going to actually have to play some songs on it this weekend and be able to play it with high proficiency. And I'm not going to be at home sitting here at my computer when I do this. I'm going to be in situations that are different than I normally play. And I'm going to have to now use my ring finger in place of my middle finger for some three-finger concepts, which is really awkward and kind of uncomfortable. But because I practice these type of situations, I try to practice outside of my comfort zone, I've actually been able to accommodate it pretty reasonably. It sounds something like this. Now, that's not, bring the camera back up, that's not the best I've ever played this. Not by a long shot. There's a lot about that didn't sound great, and that's because this is not normal for me. And that's why it's such a valuable thing to practice. What I want you to do is I want you to think about the song that you're most comfortable playing, whatever it might be. Maybe it's a chord progression, maybe it's a tune, whatever it is. And I want you to imagine yourself playing it. I want you to think, where are you imagining yourself as you play this? It's very likely that you're playing it in the environment that you play it in the most. Maybe it's sitting in a music room or a place that you have dedicated for your practice. Now, if you take that same song and you were to go play it at the beach for a bunch of friends, or maybe you had a call with somebody and they asked you to play it for them, would you feel as confident and as comfortable playing that song? And my guess is no, if you haven't practiced to that type of environment before. And the reason for that is very simple. It's just because you haven't practiced that situation. So the way that we can start to put this in motion is to start making ourselves purposely a little bit uncomfortable to be able to play through different aspects of adversity while we're practicing our instrument. This doesn't work very well when we're brand new learning a new song. It's really more for when we're wanting to refine a piece of music and play it at a higher level, becoming more like a professional player. And so when we do this, there's all sorts of different ways we can practice it. The first way I like to do it is just to go to a different room. If there's somewhere you normally practice your uke, go somewhere else. If there's a chair you normally use, sit in a different chair. Maybe lie down on your bed. Maybe sit in your couch. Be in a different situation and try to play that same song that you're normally very comfortable with. You're going to notice it's a little bit more uncomfortable because that situation's different. That's a physical difference. You can also do things with distractions, such as put on the TV when you play. Now, I know that's funny, right? And I'm not condoning that your practice be with the TV all the time. But I am saying if you want to be able to perform a song or play it at a performance level, you want to be able to play it with those distractions. Because if you can play it with the TV on being a distraction, well, when you're performing for a group, that person talking in the corner, it's a similar type of feel. It's a distraction that you're now practicing to be able to play through. These different environments that we put ourselves in that are a little more uncomfortable helps us get not better at that specific instance, but we become more comfortable being uncomfortable, which leads to a much better performance of whatever it is we're playing. Just like me right now, as I'm playing my 3-finger style without my middle finger and trying to use these, is this going to make me a better ukulele player? Well, not necessarily, because I'm modifying the technique in a way that I'm not necessarily going to do a lot. But what it does do is it makes me a better performer. It makes me better at accommodating uncomfortable situations and being able to present something that is more comfortable from the experience. And that right there is a huge difference between most players and the professional players and people who are comfortable and confident while performing. It's not necessarily just that they've practiced to all these situations. It's that they've practiced in uncomfortable situations, allowing them to be more comfortable being a little bit uneasy, right? So what I'm going to be doing, bring the camera back down, is I'm going to be working on just playing this piece of music that I know I'm going to have to perform soon with these modified fingers because I know that it's going to make me more comfortable. And the cool thing is when this comes off, I'm going to be that much better for it because I'm going to be used to being really out of my element no matter where I'm at, if that makes any sense. So it's a really important concept to get comfortable with. Now, to go along with this, we've talked about some physical things like going to a different room or sitting in a different chair, being in a different place. Talked about introducing things like distractions, putting on the TV, also playing for friends, or maybe you're playing in a public place, whatever it may be like that. These are great ways to create distractions to challenge yourself. But to go with that, if you make a mistake, well, it doesn't really make a difference if you make a mistake sitting by yourself or sitting in a distracted room. The mistake can be very jarring and it can be very difficult to overcome. So I want to talk about specifically how you can fix your mistakes too when you're playing and adopting this performance mindset. One of the most important things I think about the performance mindset is understanding that you only have one take. You only get to play it through once. There's no restarting, there's no playing it over again. You just have to play through from start to finish. If I'm filming a video, I can click record, make a mistake, click stop, and then click record again, start anew, and it's like nothing ever happened with a mistake. And I can keep doing this until I get my perfect take. But when I'm performing, no audience is going to want to sit through that, right? No audience is going to want to sit through me playing a song, starting it, and being like, I didn't love how that started. Let me start over and play it through again, right? It just doesn't work. Now, if you're sitting by yourself practicing, that does work. And a lot of us do this when we're practicing, which can be good to make sure that we're learning how to play it correct. But it also can be very negative for when we're trying to be able to play something all the way through mistake-free, or in this case, even with mistakes, but comfortably and confidently. And so here are a couple tools that you can do to learn how to play mistake-free. The first thing is start to practice videoing yourself. And when you video yourself, you only get the one take I just talked about. You don't get to do 2 videos. You get only 1 video. And that can be as simple as pulling open your phone, clicking open the camera, putting it in front of you, clicking record, and playing whatever song it is you're wanting to play. And I want you to pretend that you're live, that you're playing just like I am right here live on YouTube, and be able to just play from start to finish. And if you make a mistake, The camera's still rolling. Do your best to continue playing through it. The good news is that video, it's just you're videoing yourself, and it doesn't have to be seen by anyone. So it can create a pretty low stakes environment that still creates some pressure for you to try to play through the mistakes that you're making. If you're practicing by yourself, you usually don't try to play through the mistakes in that same way. Now, if you're making the same mistakes at the same sort of parts again and again, oftentimes that's because when you learn a song, you learn it very linearly. You learn the beginning of the song, and then you play it all the way through to the end of the song. And that's not the best way to really learn how to play a tune at a high level. It's really important to break that tune up and to play it in different points. In fact, if you play a song based on a tab, go ahead and pull out the tab of the song, just kind of grab your finger and point to a random place, and start on whatever note your finger is pointing at. You might notice it's really, really challenging to do that because it's no longer the linear path that you typically follow when you're playing the tune. The neuron pathway doesn't quite want to start halfway through. It wants to start at the beginning of what you know. My favorite analogy for this is like the ABCs. I don't know the ABCs nearly well enough because all the time my son will ask me, is this letter before or after this letter? And I'm sitting there going, A, B, C, D, E, F, G, H, I, J, K, L, M, N, O, P. L, M, N, O. O is after N, whatever it might be. And the reason for that is that linear pathway I'm talking about. If I really cared to learn the alphabet, what I should do is learn it backwards and learn it from any point to go through so that I could understand the relationship that each one of those letters share to each other. That's what I do with songs. When I'm learning a song, I don't just learn the beginning all the way through the end. I'll be able to start in the middle and at different points. And you can break this up based on measures, on chords, and also just finding and pointing to a random spot at a point anywhere on the tune. And practicing that can be really, really helpful. In addition to that, you can practice at different tempos, different speeds, because it's different than what you're normally playing. And when you do that, it's creating an opportunity, again, going back to the beginning of this session, to kind of be uncomfortable, right? But that discomfort allows you to be able to overcome that challenge and obstacle and be able to learn things in a way where you don't get interrupted nearly as much, right? So I want you to try to practice songs from middle points and from different points than you typically play it. In fact, one time on a lesson here on Rock Class 101, it was a live lesson just like this. And we're talking about practice habits and routines. And somebody commented saying, I like to practice things backwards. And they explained that they do a backwards practice where they start with just the last measure of a song. And then they do the last 2 measures, last 3 measures, last 4. They don't play literally the end of the song back forward. No, they just start with, if it's an 8 measure song, they just play measure 8. And then they play measures 7 and 8. And then they play 6, 7, and 8, and then 5, 6, 7, 8. And I love that idea, so I started practicing that myself, and now it's one of my favorite things to work on, and work on both for myself and with private students, to be able to get really, really comfortable with playing at different points in a song. Because if you think about it, if you're performing and your mind goes blank and you just forgot where you are or where you're going, if you need to start back at the beginning of the song, it's just not going to work. But if you can start back at any point in the tune, it's a lot easier for your mind to come back centered to where you're at so that you're able to then recover. And if you make a mistake, be able to pick up with the next bar, as opposed to needing to reset the whole tune from the very beginning. These are a lot of concepts that I'm talking about right now, but they're really important when you're trying to take those next steps as a player, because the performance mindset is not just about performing, but rather creating accountability within your practice so that in the event you are performing for someone or just trying to make a video or play a tune all the way through without mistakes, what you start to realize is that mistakes are inevitable, and it's not about playing things with no mistakes. It's about how well you can recover and hide those mistakes as you're playing through. And the performance mindset is that the show must go on, and no matter what you do, you need to make sure the next note follows the one you just played. And so when you create these uncomfortable situations and environments to play in, you get more comfortable with that anxiety, with that sense of discomfort, so that then when you are performing, you feel more at ease, even though it might be, a really uncomfortable situation. So it's a really interesting concept. It's a lot of fun to practice, though, and a lot of fun to try different things. Let me give you a couple recommendations for ways that you can practice and try things just to, again, create the sense of discomfort. The first one I'm going to show you is the one I'm doing right now. I can't use my middle finger. This has been really weird and very interesting. So I've been trying to do all the different things I do with the ukulele without access to my middle finger. Bring the camera back down. Earlier in the lesson, I showed you how I was doing 3-finger picking, which normally I use my middle finger here on my first string. Now I'm having to use the ring finger here on that string, right? This is not normal, but it's a really good practice habit for me because it's forcing my body to be more, my fingers to be more plastic, be more malleable with how I'm working on it, which is going to make it a lot easier when I'm learning a new technique, right? So you can do this at home by trying to do things where maybe you normally use a 4-finger style with a song, try a 3-finger style instead. Maybe you normally play a song with finger picking, try using just your thumb. Maybe you normally use your thumb, try using your fingers instead. Just creating this opportunity to have some discomfort can really help, and you might even find a different way of playing it that you end up liking more. To go with this, try sitting in the chair in different ways that you normally play in, and try sitting in different positions. If you normally practice with a chair that has a back like mine does here, try practicing sitting in a stool. You'll notice that it feels much different without your back being able to lean back. On the same front, go sit on the couch and sink into that couch and try to play. Is that going to create good habits for your posture and form? Not necessarily, but you're not doing it all the time now, right? It's more about creating that different environment. Try these different physical locations and using different techniques to create different sounds. As I mentioned before, you can put on the TV. It's a great way to practice this. Also, try to practice while talking to a friend. If you have a really patient friend, this works really well, but try to actually sit and play a song while you're talking. I'm going to do this right now by actually playing this while I'm trying to do this lesson. This is so hard for me, makes me very uncomfortable, especially because I'm live on YouTube right now, and any mistake I make will be remembered for all time, but that's kind of what makes it helpful. And the reason why I can do this better than I could before is because I've practiced. I've practiced being uncomfortable and being in these situations that are different. And so that's something that you can do too. That conversation can be a great way to do it. You can also do it by just going to like a public area, go to a park or a beach or something like that. Sit and play your songs because they'll be very different than you normally do. In addition to this, which is again creating different environments, you can try playing your songs in different ways with different techniques and try practicing them starting at different points in the song to really mess with your brain and get comfortable with recovering from that mess. So this is a pretty loaded concept. There's a lot that goes with it, but the gist of this all is that the show must go on. The performance mindset is about keeping things moving all the way through and being able to, if you make a mistake, continue practicing through that mistake and playing through it so that you get more comfortable with the start to finish of the performance instead of being able to just start over again and again and again as you're comfortable, right? It's tough stuff though. Now, there were some great questions I saw that were posted on the Rock Class forums. We do one of these live lessons every month. And so be sure to leave your comments and questions down in the comments below if you have any, and if you want to have a question asked live, you can attend the live stream there on Rock Class. So the Bubble Bard says, such a great topic. I can't wait for this one. I don't know anything about playing ukulele like a pro, not being a pro, but I've gained some insight into performing from playing on some open mics the last few months, something I never thought I could do. But my friend Gigi convinced me to. Thanks to her. Here are a few things I learned. As you like to say, Matt, the fear of performing never really goes away, but you get better at being terrified if you have performance anxiety. It's so important to learn that you can be terrified, but still keep going and experience the fear. I love that. As I've said it many times, I suffer from performance anxiety and I still get anxious every time. I'm just more comfortable being anxious now because I know what to expect because I've practiced so much in being in that anxious state. And then says, even when I thought I absolutely bombed my performances, when I watched them back, they were actually way better than I thought. A lot of the time, they were actually pretty good. When you mess up, it probably isn't as bad as you think. Absolutely. Perspective's reality with this stuff, and the perspective you have in the moment might be very different than the perspective you have after you've done it. And, you know, yeah, don't worry about it. The moment, whatever happens in that moment, happens in that moment, and then you just got to move on. And you're exactly right. We usually play it out to be much worse in our heads than it actually was. The audience's perception might be completely different from your perception. Even if you mess up, the likelihood that they will notice or care is slim to none. The audience wants you to do well and isn't focusing on your mistakes. That's a wonderful point. And to piggyback on that even more, the audience, as you just said, wants you to do well. So true. So if your body language changes to be really, closed, and you make a mistake and you get really anxious and you show that anxiety, the audience doesn't like that. It's so much more pleasing for an audience member to watch somebody make a mistake with confidence than it is for them to even play the note right without confidence. It's amazing how much of a difference it makes to have that presence. And the way that we gain confidence in that way is through experience. And the way we get experience being confident is through this type of practice. We have to practice in situations that can crash our confidence, practice in situations that shrink our confidence so that we can grow it through our practice so that when we're performing, it's there. So very, very cool stuff, Bumblebard. And then also says, there's so much more I've learned besides that, but the most important thing about performing is to just do it. That's the only way you'll get better at it. But start small, maybe by just going on an open mic to watch. That's what I did, but I'm also fully convinced I never would have been able to do those open mics without all the practice playing and recording through Rock Class 101. These are just my thoughts as someone who just started learning to perform live for others. I hope it's okay I shared this. Really looking forward to the lesson. Absolutely. These are wonderful, wonderful points. And again, really important to this conversation. It's funny because we think that when I say performer's mindset, there's a lot of people that shut down with that because they think, well, I don't want to perform. And I get it. I don't want to perform either, but I want to be able to perform, if that makes sense. It's not that I really want to go play in front of other people. It's more, I want to be able to play well enough to play in front of other people. And I think a lot of people share that mentality. And the important thing to realize there is that you practice it the same way as if you want to perform. You still need to create those uncomfortable situations, to create adversity in your practice, to be able to power through those and have the practice of doing that so that when the situation you're put in requires you to be able to do it, you have that infrastructure. And that's where that distracted practice comes into play. It's where being able to play songs backwards to forwards or start at random intermediate parts of the song becomes so critical to the development of the playing. So it's really, again, quite fascinating stuff. Let me see if there are any other questions here that are asked. If you're attending this live, feel free to leave a comment in the chat if you have a question that you'd like to see answered. But let me refresh here and see if there's anything else with it. I injured my finger at Disney with my son. I got my finger stuck in a locker, which was obviously no fun, but it's doing better. And it was really cracking me up when I messaged Drew here at Rock Class 101. I was like, I injured my finger. We should be good for the live stream, though. He asked if I wanted to reschedule and everything. I was like, no, I think we're good. In fact, we're going to be talking about overcoming adversity while practicing. No better way to talk about it than this right here. So pretty fun to go through. But yeah, it's a really important concept, again, to be able to create adversity through your practice so that when you experience it live, you kind of know what to expect. You know how that feeling goes, and you know what it's like to overcome that in the moment. Hey, Martin, good to see you here in the chat, commenting a German word, which I assume is ouch, for the spelling of ouch. Yeah, no good, but we should be good to go. So I don't see any other questions or comments on the Rock Class forums. Again, we do these every month here on Rock Class 101. And what's cool is the prompt of the lesson will be posted ahead of time. So if you're unable to make one of these live, you can always leave a comment on the forums and I'll be able to answer it live in the stream. And if you're able to make the live shows, then you can also ask your questions here as we go along. So just to sum it up, the performance mindset, it's really about being able to play through uncomfortable situations. And the way to sum that up is to get yourself out of your typical mold of how you practice. If you're always sitting in the same room all the time, playing in the same place, same chair, get out of it. Go sit on a stool upstairs in your living room. Go outside on a bench and sit and play at a park. Play in public. Play talking to people. Play with the TV on. Try to play in all these different situations so that you can get comfortable being a little bit distracted and able to still play through the tunes. And in the event you make a mistake and you don't know where you're at, that's where practicing that type of thing can be so helpful. So start songs in the middle of them instead of always starting at the beginning, so that you get comfortable starting at random points to be able to play through and perform through the entire song. You can also play something that I learned here in one of these live streams of practicing backwards. Start with the last measure, play that, and then the last two measures, play that. You're still playing it the correct way, you're just starting with the last measure and then the last two measures and three to get comfortable with a different starting point, because in the event you make a mistake, it's so much easier to recover from it when you're used to practicing starting at different points in songs. With that performance mindset, keep thinking the show must go on. So any mistake that you make, any problem that you have, you want to just push through. And remember, the audience, they want you to succeed, just like the Bumblebard says. And so when you show that confidence and show that comfort, it really responds well with the audience. And even if you're not actually performing and you're just trying to elevate your songs to be at a higher level, that confidence shows through the recordings, through the videos, through your playing, and really can help elevate your playing to new heights. And that's really, in my opinion, what it takes to play like a pro player. You want to practice all your first stuff in these controlled environments, learn the skills, develop the skills, but once you want to take them to that next level, that's where it's really important to add some adversity to your practice to be able to overcome that. If you have any questions, feel free to leave them down in the comments below. If you're watching this as a recording, again, we do these once a month here on Rock Class 101. I'll look forward to seeing you next time on the next episode. Thank you so much. I hope you have a wonderful week. Talk to you soon.